So who doesn't have questions about this thing? I mean, 9 days later and it's still standing. So let's talk about what we know and what we don't know. We'll start with two things that we know. The first is that, well, it is indeed still standing. Here's what happened today, though. We did watch them change out the wrecking ball, but don't get too excited. I confirmed with Neighbors Demo it's the same weight as yesterday, 5,600 pounds. It's just a different shape. And with that new wrecking ball, a chunk of the building came down this afternoon. Here's the second thing that we know. The wrecking ball itself is not supposed to take down what's left of this building. No, Neighbors Demo tells me the wrecking ball is only supposed to take it down 4 to 5 floors, and then they'll go in with their high-reach excavator, which is already on site, to finish the job. All right, now let's talk about 3 questions that everybody wants the answer to. The first one is, why is that wrecking ball so small? Well, we were told by experts and also by Neighbors Demo that, believe it or not, the wrecking ball is the right size for the crane that's currently being used based on federal safety regulations. Okay, so why not bring in a bigger crane then? Well, Neighbors Demo tells me that due to size constraints of the site as well as crane availability, that's why they're using the crane and therefore the wrecking ball that you see here on scene. We've also heard from a lot of you who want to know who built this thing in the first place. Some of you even saying that that person should build tornado shelters. Well, we're still working on tracking down that information and we'll keep you posted once we get it. So in the meantime, we'll keep an eye on the Leaning Tower of Dallas and we'll just enjoy it while it lasts. In Dallas, I'm Ariel Placencia.